All right. Welcome, everybody, to our Ironman 70.3 Oregon Conquer the Course webinar. We are excited to have you all here today and celebrate one of our most popular races, Ironman 70.3 Oregon. Beautiful race. So my name's Joel Feinberg. I actually live in Chicago. I'm the Midwest Regional Marketing Manager, but have strong ties to Portland and the West Coast. And I am filling in for Meg Anderson, who is away on vacation with her family. So I'd like to welcome you all here to this webinar. We hope that you find this webinar useful with the content and information. It's here to provide all the insight and information as we have two great leaders that are going to take you through it. Just some housekeeping items real quick. First, this webinar will be recorded. So if you know folks that were not able to make it, or you know folks that might find this information useful, it will be recorded and posted up on the race Facebook page and also the race webpage as well under the athlete tab. And that will be probably put up in the next couple days or so. So give us a little bit of time to get the recording out. All right, without further ado, I am going to introduce our two speakers for today. First, Juliet Hochman from Life Sport Coaching. Life Sport's actually been a part of many of our webinars, especially out in the West Coast this year. So we're glad to have you and Life Sport with us and your expertise. And then somebody that I've worked with pretty closely the last couple of years, and you've all done probably a couple of his races, Joel Gaff. Joel is the race director for Ironman 70.3 Oregon. And Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been on board with it since the beginning?
That's correct, since we started in 2021.
Who better to know than the person that has put it together since the beginning? And then personally, from a Midwest perspective, I'm also going to give Joel a shout out that he's also the race director for Ironman 70.3 Michigan as well, as he's from Traverse City. So you have one of our best race directors, along with one of our best partner organizations in Life Sport, and Juliet. So without further ado, Juliet, it is yours to go.
All right, great. Thanks so much for the introduction, Joel. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, which has my presentation. So just stand by. All right. And then, okay, hopefully I can't see you. I can only see my presentation. So hopefully everybody can see the title page of this. Really happy to be here. Thanks very much for having us. Just a couple more housekeeping tips before we get going here. We have disabled the chat, but you are welcome to ask questions in the Q&A. I have both Joel Gaff, the race director, as well as my colleague at Life Sport Coaching, Jeff Sankoff, in the background answering questions. So as the questions roll in, they will be answering them in the Q&A section. Also pinned at the top of the Q&A section is my contact information. I welcome any follow-up questions about Oregon or 70.3 racing in general. There's also a link if you'd like to schedule a free 30-minute consult on 70.3 Oregon or 70.3 racing in general. So that's pinned at the top of the Q&A. I'll also stop at several times throughout the presentation to see if there's any questions that haven't been answered, and we can bring those to the fore and I can answer those sort of live. Okay, so who am I and why the heck are you here listening to me today? So I have been coaching triathlon for about 8 years. I'm certified by both USA Triathlon and Ironman University. I also continue to train and compete as an athlete. I've won the 70.3 World Championships for my age group several times, as well as being the world champion at the ITU short course, both in duathlon and in triathlon. But I started my athletic life as a rower, to be honest. I rowed through high school and college and was the youngest member of the U.S. Olympic rowing team in 1988 while still in college. Went to Harvard University, got my business degree at Stanford. But what I do now and have for several years is coach triathletes of all different backgrounds and experiences. But most important for you today is that along with Joel, I've been involved with 70.3 Oregon since its inception in 2021. I won my age group the first couple of years. Last year, I was sidelined by a running injury, but I still did the swim and bike portion and laid down the third fastest women's bike split, including the pros for the bike leg. So I feel that I am uniquely poised to talk to you about what I think is the best 70.3 race on the circuit. I live in Oregon. I live about an hour east of Portland, Oregon. In addition to coaching privately, coaching individual athletes, I also run race-specific clinics. I run a women's bike camp here in Paradise in Hood River, Oregon. I help run an online tri club and then also run other various clinics throughout the year. So that's me. Now let's get on to the race. Okay, 70.3 Oregon. Beautiful place. Oregon in general is beautiful, and Salem is no exception. It is an extremely beginner-friendly course. In fact, many of you here today are probably doing not only your first 70.3, but also your first triathlon in Salem in July. It's got a terrific hometown feel. It's a great spectator race if you're bringing family or friends. Everybody loves to talk about the exciting downriver swim, which we'll pull apart in a few minutes. The bike course is rolling, it's quiet, you go through vineyards and orchards and strawberry fields so vibrant, you can smell them as you roll through them. And the run, you won't see a single car for the entire run. It is entirely in a nature preserve on bike paths, well shaded, almost perfectly flat. It's just a terrific beginner course. It's also a terrific course if you're out there to get a PR. I mean, if we can shave 20 minutes off your swim time without even trying, you're probably bound for a PR right from the time you hit the water. So be excited about this race. It's also got terrific opportunities for post-race recreation. It's in the heart of the Willamette Valley, which grows some of the best Pinot Noir grapes, as well as other wines and beer and great hiking. You get to go to the coast, you can go to Bend, you can come to Hood River, plenty of things to do. So stick around for a couple of days after and enjoy your recovery week in Oregon. Finally, most importantly, of course, we have a llama at the finish line. If you know, you know, and we'll move on to the next slide with that. Okay, what are we talking about today? We're talking about pre-race. We're talking about race day, particularly race day morning, and some of the things you should be thinking about. And then we'll break apart the swim, the bike, and the run and talk about each of those specifically. All right, first of all, where the heck is Salem, Oregon? It is not the biggest city in Oregon. It is our capital city, but our airport is actually just 45 minutes north, just to the east of Portland. In fact, what my colleague coach said, why isn't there an airport in Salem? It is 45 minutes north. You are going to have to rent a car to get from the airport if you're flying in down to Salem and to get around during race weekend. It's about yeah, and I say about an hour, 45 minutes from Portland. It's 2.5 hours from Bend. It's 3.5 hours driving from Seattle. If you're doing a road trip up from Northern California, it's 9.5 hours from San Francisco. Couple pro tips: if you haven't booked accommodation yet, you should probably get on that pretty soon. Salem is not a big city. It does not have extensive accommodation. And if you don't get organized about that, you may find yourself staying closer and closer to Portland, which just means a longer drive on race day morning. So think about getting your accommodation booked if you haven't already. Salem's not a big town. If there's something really specific you want for race day, yes, of course, we have supermarkets and all of those things. But if there's a really specific product you know you're going to want in the days up to the race or even during the race itself, make sure you bring it with you. That's probably true for any race. And then finally, as I said earlier, make sure you stay in the area if you have a couple of extra vacation days to play. There's no better place than Oregon in the summer. So make sure you stay and hang out and have a good time. Okay. Salem, this is sort of an overhead shot giving you the lay of the land. Okay, so if you can follow my cursor a little bit here, you can see that this is downtown Salem. All right, it abuts the whole area of Riverfront Park immediately. So you're going to find plenty of parking on race day in downtown Salem. This is Riverfront Park, and this is actually a great view. This is the dock right here, the swim exit dock, and this white lump is actually the stern wheeler, which makes for a great thing to sight as you finish up the swim. So this is where you're exiting the swim. This is the finish of the swim right here. You're coming down river through the main channel, you're coming around the top of the island, and then you have about 150 meters across this still water slough to get to the exit area. Okay, then you're coming up a ramp and then a series of ramps to get up to transition, which is in this big field right here. Ironman Village is set up over here for registration in the days before the race. Your bike exit comes out this way and along this road and up this little hill. All right, when you come back in, you go the other way. Run exit is on this side. You go out this way across this beautiful bridge onto Mitchell Brown Island Park, which is right here. That's where the whole run is in this nature preserve. And then this area right here is the finish. The finish line is right here. And the finish area is this whole area, including post-race food, awards, and the aforementioned llama. So this is where the crowd is going to be gathering on race day. There'll be tons of people cheering you across this bridge through the end of your run and through your victorious charge down the red carpet through the finish line. So again, very close to downtown Salem, lots of food options in here, easy to park on race day morning. That's sort of the overhead view of the Ironman Village transition area, etc. Okay, race venue. As we've already mentioned, there's a single transition in Riverfront Park. We just showed you an aerial view of that. The water temp is generally right around 65 degrees, which means it is wetsuit legal, but not too cold, which is great. The 3 years so far, it's always been wetsuit legal. If it is wetsuit legal, wear a wetsuit. It is always advantageous for swimming this distance. There's always good parking downtown. We talked about that already. And one thing I'm going to say on behalf of Joel and all of the race organizers is please read your athlete guide. It's not up on the website yet, but about 6 weeks beforehand, it will be up on the Ironman website. All the information you need to know is in the athlete guide. So take some time, read it over coffee one morning. Don't be that athlete that shows up at the athlete briefing and asks every single question that was covered in the athlete guide. So do yourself a favor, be calmer as you go into this race by being armed with information that is available in the athlete's guide. Last year's athlete guide is still up there, and a lot of the information will be the same. So if you want to get a jump on things, you can go and check out the 2023 athlete guide. A lot will be similar. So what should you do in the couple of the days before the race? Optimally, you're arriving there sort of Thursday evening. Totally okay if you can't make it till Friday evening. You'll still have a full day to look around, but it's a little more relaxed if you have a couple of days on the ground to get the lay of the land. Number one thing you want to do is really learn the flow of transition. There's a lot of curiosity about transition, anxiety about transition. You really do yourself a favor if you go down to the swim dock, the swim exit dock, put your back to the water, and literally walk up the ramp, up the flow ramps, along the side of transition, all the way in, swim in to get to where your bike will be positioned. For those of you new to Ironman, your race number will be somewhere on the racks. That is where your bike will be. Everybody has a designated bike parking position, if you will. So you will be able in the days before the race to see where your bike will be. Then walk from your bike rack to bike exit so that you know where to go out. Turn around, walk back to your bike where your bike will be positioned, and then walk to run exit so that you know exactly the flow of transition. Every year at every triathlon, there's someone running around in circles trying to figure out which way to go. You can avoid that by walking through it in the days ahead of the race. There will be athlete briefings on both Friday and Saturday before the race. This will be the race director's opportunity to give you updates. It might be something to do with road conditions or weather or water temps or something like that. So come to those athlete briefings, particularly if this is your first 70.3, and you'll be able to ask questions at the end as well. Now, on either side of those athlete briefings on Friday and Saturday, I will be there giving clinics on open water swim strategy for both beginners and veterans, as well as tips on racing, nutrition, and pacing for your 70.3. So those will be sandwiched on either side of the athlete briefing. So come along, say hi, ask your questions about those topics. Those are free to everybody. They'll run about half an hour in the same time as the athlete briefings. Okay, if you have time, highly encourage you to get in and practice the swim. Now, unlike a lake or even an ocean swim at other 70.3s, when you get into the Willamette River at 70.3 Oregon on the race course, there will be no swimming back upstream. Not even the strongest swimmer is going to be able to swim back to their start point. So this is going to take a little bit of planning. Please always swim with other people. Please use a visibility buoy, those buoys that you clip around your waist and it's an inflatable that goes behind you so that you can be seen. And just think about the fact that if you walk up to the start of the swim, someone, a non-swimming friend, is going to have to take back your shoes or anything else that you bring that you don't want to take down the river with you. So swim together, be safe, go ahead and do the course. It won't take you very long, but just plan, because it takes a few more logistics than if you're just to hop in at the beach and swim as if this was in a lake. If you want to do a bike activation before the race itself, the best place to do that is on the back end of the course. You can do it anywhere on the course, it's fine. But after about the 10-mile mark on the course, when you turn left on Riverfront Road, it gets a lot quieter. and you're rolling through farmlands, etc., you can actually drive up to the place where you turn left. There's some gravel parking on the side of the road. You can park there and you can ride towards the back end of the course. So if you have 45 or hour and a half minute ride in a couple days before the race, go ahead and do it on the back end of the course. And then, of course, if you want to go for a shakeout run, Minto Brown Park is right there. You have a whole bunch of choices of places to go. You can't really get lost. You can run the course. Ironman does a really good job in the 2 days before the course, marking the bike course with blue tape, blue bike. And so you can always know where the bike course goes in the days before the course. And they mark the red course with red tape, red run. And so you'll know where the run course is going if you want to take a look-see at the courses before the race. Another reminder is, if you've never done a 70.3 before and you've only done local racing, you do have to check in your bike the day before the race. You cannot bring your bike on race day morning. So make sure that you make time for that on Saturday afternoon before you go and you put your feet up on the day before the race. Okay, moving along. Race morning, have a plan. There's always things that are going to go wrong on race day, and your ability to execute a satisfactory race day is your ability to pivot and react. All right, so set out everything the day before. Have a plan. Give yourself time to drive to the venue, park, walk to the venue, make sure you're there at least an hour ahead of time. Transition opens at 5 a.m. and there will be hundreds of people in line at 5 a.m. getting ready to get into transition. So it'll be dark. Bring a headlamp so that you can see easily. Joel can comment on this, but the first couple of years of the race, the Parks and Rec forgot to turn off the sprinklers. So when we arrived in the morning, the bikes were soaked. I don't know. I think they probably solved that problem since then. Joel can comment on that at the end, but you might bring a bag for your seat for the night before if you're concerned about it getting wet. In general, it doesn't rain in Oregon in the summer, so we probably don't have to worry about inclement weather. But anyway, arrive early, have plenty of time to be there. When you set up transition, you're inflating your tires, you're securing your nutrition and your bottles on your bike. You do not leave your nutrition there the day before. That comes with you on race morning. You've got your bike computer, your helmet, your shoes, your run gear. So those are all the details you have to think about setting up on race day morning. You'll be there with 2,000 of your best friends. If you're not sure what to do, ask the people around you. Everyone's eager to help. You got to give yourself time to put on your wetsuit. This will not be the first time you tried on your wetsuit. Make sure you swim with it a couple of times before you get to race day. Pro tip, the zipper goes in the back. You can wear your heart rate strap underneath. That's often a question that we get. Yes, of course, you can wear it throughout the whole race. It'll be fine under there. And then when you're all ready to go, about half an hour before the race starts, Ironman lines everybody up along the river side of transition. And this is just like any other 70.3 in that volunteers will have signs. And you can see a picture of one of these signs in this photograph here. And it will mark your expected finish time for a 70.3 swim. And it'll be 28 minutes and under, and then it'll go in steps of usually 3 to 5 minutes, all the way up to an hour. So position yourself with the group of athletes who will be swimming the same time as you. Now, speed yourself as if it is for a typical 70.3 swim, not Oregon 70.3. Everybody is going to swim under half an hour on this, all right? Pretty much. And so not everybody is going to be in the under 30-minute group. So position yourself in the group of athletes as if it were a lake swim, all right? And then you will all march down towards the start together. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a minute to see if there are any questions before I dive into the swim portion of the race. Anything from our friends in the back? All right, I'm going to assume that is a no.
Nope, you're good to go.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. All right, great. So here is an overhead view of the 70.3 swim. Starting from the bottom right, first of all, you will be walking with your group from transition, which is right here by Riverfront Park, okay, across this beautiful bridge. This is the beginning and end of the run course as well, by the way, which you'll see in a moment. You're walking all the way down. It's about a 1.2 mile walk with 2,000 of your best friends. You're cutting through, and you will end up down at the bottom here, right at the swim start. We'll talk a little bit about the swim start itself in a moment, but just looking at this aerial view, the current will be apparent from the moment you hit the water. It will start to take you downstream. Now, anybody who's done this race will comment that the first 400 meters or so is a bit of a cluster. The current moves very fast. It's not dangerous. It's not scary. It just moves right along. And you're following the red buoys just as you are with any 70.3 swim, except that you're sort of being pulled towards them. We're keeping the buoys to our right. And the thing that you need to know is it gets quite shallow at about the 300 meter mark. Everybody calls this the sandbar. Now, this is actually a swim feature you do not want to miss. Some years it is very, very shallow. It's about, gosh, it looks like it's about 1.5 feet deep. And you may feel like you can't get a full swim stroke in. The bottom is smooth river pebbles. So there's nothing down there that's going to injure you or hurt you, even if you do graze it with your hands. But you go across the sandbar incredibly fast. And you actually don't know how fast you're moving until you can see the bottom of the river rushing below you. If you're concerned about touching the bottom there, just go ahead and streamline. You're going to be over that thing in 5 to 7 seconds. But I don't want you to miss it because it's actually a lot like a flume ride at a park. It's a lot of fun. And then once you shoot off the top of the sandbar, and now you are basically in the main belly of the river, and you will continue your swim down river. All right. Now, you're going to it won't look just like this because the river rises and these sandbars are covered. This satellite photo is a little bit misleading. Pro tip is you want to sight off this right-hand bank. The sun is coming straight into your eyes. So you're going to have trouble seeing the red buoys that are right in front of you. Okay. So 2 ways to sight on a course like this. One is to try to keep yourself equidistant off the right-hand shore, the island. And the other is just to make sure that you can always see caps to your left and see caps to your right, because then you know you're in the school of fish and you're going in the right direction. So don't be discouraged if when you look up, you can't see the buoys because the sun is quite bright right in your face. All right, there's more description. Moving on to the next slide. Backing up for a minute. Again, this is a picture of everybody walking down to the start. There is a point about probably 400 or 500 meters on the path before the swim start where you can put your morning clothes bag onto a truck. So if you've worn shoes to this point, or maybe a jacket, or you have extra hydration or nutrition or whatever, you can put all of those into a morning clothes bag, give them to a volunteer, and they will be trucked back to the start. Now, if you are someone who wears glasses or needs a particular medication, the volunteers can't get those special items back to the start in time for you to get out of the water. So think ahead on that. You're going to have 2 sets of glasses, one to go in that morning clothes bag, one to go at the finish of the swim, because they can't get it back to you quickly enough. All right. So something to think about for those special cases. As you're walking down to the start, you will see people running ahead to try to get to the faster swim group. Just let them go. Be in the right place. Be in your right time category. Don't worry about other people's nerves. Also, it's going to take you 20 minutes or so to walk down to the start. So circumspice, look around you, talk to the people on either side of you. They're nervous too. You're all in this together. Make friends. Talk about your plans after the race. Find out where people are from. Help each other zip up the wetsuits, because a lot of people will walk down most of the way with their wetsuit around their waist. Get to know people. You have some time in there. Now, when you get up to just around the corner from where this picture is taken, people will just stop, because now you're in the swim chute, essentially. Ironman has, over the last 3 years, this year being number 4, gotten better and better at the ramp that they are using to get people down this very steep bank into the water. It's a narrow ramp. They can put 2 people on it at once, and you will be able to watch people in front of you go down the ramp and sort of see how it's done. You will notice, and take note of this because your turn will come, that you should have everything completely ready to go. Goggles down, cap in place, wetsuit completely ready to go. Because once you hit the top of that ramp, the Ironman volunteers are going to be saying, all right, go, 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 let's go, let's go. And you go down the ramp with one other person, you get to the small flotilla at the bottom of the ramp, and you jump in the water. There's no time to hesitate at the bottom. We really want to get all the athletes into the water as quickly as possible, and we can only do it 2 at a time. So be courteous to the athletes behind you, get down the ramp quickly, and get into the water. You will also notice that, at least in years past, particularly if you're towards the back of the swimmer group getting in, that there will be a few people who get into this current and are feeling a little bit anxious. And when it gets shallow on the other side of the river, they will try to stand up. And then their anxiety increases a little bit because the water is going so fast that it's very, very difficult to stand up. So ignore the people that you see standing on the other side of the river. Stay towards the middle of the river, stay in the flow of water, follow the buoys, follow the people in front of you, and let the current take you for that first 400 meters or so until you're across the sandbar and into the main belly of the river. Folks, this is such a great swim. This is so much fun. People come to Oregon to do this swim. So enjoy it, relish it. You'll probably never have a swim time as fast as this one. It is a lot faster than a normal swim. And so really enjoy that. This picture on the right is a good sort of portrayal of what the end of the swim looks like. We're looking down the course. This is, you can see the red buoys here, these little red dots that swimmers are keeping to their right. And then this is the top of the island. You want to round this corner and then you're coming straight across this very still slough to cross over to the exit dock. You can see Ironman's volunteers in the kayakers and the paddle boats, et cetera, trying to keep people away from the island and on the other side of the buoys. And then again, the corners right here. So that's a good sort of idea. And all these little ripples that you can see in this photograph, those are all swimmers. Okay, so you can see they're coming straight down the middle of the river. Okay, a couple more things about the swim, just to summarize it. It is a little bit of a cluster at the beginning. Keep the buoys on the right. Watch out for that sandbar, enjoy it, and just promise me you're going to do a little bit of an underwater giggle as you go shooting across the top of it, because it's something you'll want to remember. You want to sight the bank to the right once you get across the sandbar, the bank of the of Minto Brown Island. Sun is a factor, so you're going to want to wear tinted goggles, and you're again going to want to sight to the right, and also to swim caps of other swimmers on the left and the right of you. You must leave that last buoy in particular to the right. You don't want to cut that corner, one, because it's illegal, and two, because there's a whole bunch of weeds in the water right there and it's uncomfortable to swim through them. You do want to hug that last buoy, because if you are too far to the left, too far on the left bank of the river, then you've got to cut back across the current and you may get pushed downstream a little bit more than you want to, and you're going to have to cut back to the ferry dock. Okay, so hug that last buoy, keep your head down, keep your stroke rate up. Drafting is still a factor, even in a downwater swim. So if you can get on some people's feet or on someone's hip, one, you don't have to sight as often, and two, it will give you an advantage. And that last 150 to 200 meters as you cut across the slough towards the stern wheeler and the exit dock is very calm because there's no current coming down the slough. The exit ramp is a little bit unusual. You're not running up onto a beach or onto the sand. As you can see, there are basically 3 ramps here with 4 pontoons in between. You want to beach yourself like a whale. Okay, athletes, you want to swim right up onto this ramp until your hands are up onto the ramp and your feet are underneath you, at which point you gather your feet underneath you and you pull yourself up the rest of the ramp. There will be volunteers on these 4 pontoons on either side helping you up. If someone helps you, take the help. You're going from horizontal to vertical. Sometimes there's a little bit of imbalance as you stand up. So go ahead and take the help. Get yourself up the rest of the ramp. Realize there will be athletes wanting to come up behind you. And then this is a view from the other side, the ramp, the exit ramps being right here. There's a big black swim arch. You're coming through the swim arch. You're running up this ramp. This ramp is actually quite steep. You're going to want to take a look at it the day before the race or 2 days before the race. What I do when I race this race is I use both hands on one of the railings and I pull myself up this ramp because I'm still getting my balance, having just stood up from the swim. So you'll be going up this steep ramp. Remember, you're in your bare feet here. You are coming around the corner. There'll be crowds, lots of people lining these banks, looking for you, yelling your name, cheering you on. There's a long zigzag to run up the quite steep bank up to transition. When you get up here, you'll be running on the grass along transition all the way to the end of transition, then you'll double back to your bike. Okay, so that's the overview of the swim. Now, before we move on to T1, Joel and Jeff, do we have any questions in the back, or have you champs been handling them?
There was a question about whether or not there's an area to warm up swim, practice swim.
Oh, great question. Thanks, Jeff. So no, the answer is there's really not an area to warm up the swim. One, because from the swim start, it's virtually impossible to get into the water without going down this tiny ramp. And two, because once you get in the water, you'll be 100 meters downstream and you're going to have to fight your way back. So race warm up for a race like this, I would recommend that before you get your wetsuit on, go for a little jog, do some activation exercises, some dynamic stretching, and then put your wetsuit on, and you've got that long walk down to the start anyway. But yes, no swim warm up the day of the race. I think they let the pros get in, but I'm not even sure about that.
Juliet,
Any other thoughts?
I'll add just a little bit more too. For everybody, just to reiterate what Juliet said in the beginning about getting into the water. We have been able to make that entrance into the water better every year, and we're working this year as well to make it even better than it was last year. So the plan currently is to be 2 by 2 going down into the water. We may have a greater capacity than that, but one big thing I can stress or need to stress is that you have your goggles on, your cap on, everything on your face when you're at the top of that ramp. So you're going to walk down the 15 or 20 steps and get right into the water. If you don't have those things on, it really creates a bottleneck and just kind of creates, you know, a clog in the machinery for everybody else. So make sure caps on, goggles on, you're walking down, there's some handrails for you to get on to walk with, then you get into the water. And then once you get into the water, typically where the plan is to have all of your buoys, like Juliet said, on your right. And that's the plan. But because of the way the topography of the river will be in the spring and into the summer, we'll determine that on race week. So so plan them on your right, but at the athlete briefings, we'll let you know exactly what that will look like once we've got a chance to lay the buoys out and get all the anchors in and all that kind of stuff on race week. So plan to have them all on your right, but also attend those briefings so you know what the final word is.
The only other question that came up that we haven't had a chance to answer related to the depth of the water. You mentioned it's shallow around the sandbars. Are we talking like the Russian River from those of us who remember Vineman, where you could actually stand up and walk, or is this going to be deep enough that people aren't going to have to worry about that?
So on the sandbar itself, you could certainly stand. I mean, it can be, I think it was year 2, 2022, where you actually could touch the bottom there. But you don't want to. The water is moving so quickly that if you were to try to get your feet underneath you, it would be really disorienting because you wouldn't be able to stand. It's also a very short distance. I mean, you're across that sandbar in less than 10 seconds. So just go ahead and put yourself in streamline, Superman your way across that sandbar. You don't want to be standing up in the race. And that is the only time in the entire race that you can see the bottom across that sandbar.
Definitely don't stand up. Like Juliet said, if you stand up, you're going to get hurt. So just enjoy it, slide through.
Yeah, it really is. It's, I mean, last year I remember in the race, it was over too quickly. And I remember shooting off into the river thinking, damn, I'm going to have to wait a whole other year until I get that experience again. So really enjoy it. Any other questions from the back about the swim? Okay. All right. Moving right along. So T1, when you get out of the water, first thing you want to do is pop your goggles up on your head so you can see properly. You're going up that steep ramp. Use the railing to pull yourself up that ramp. Don't be shy to take people's help if it's offered to you by the volunteers. And then once you get to the top of the ramp, you're going to want to begin to strip your wetsuit down to your waist. Push it all the way down over your hips, as far down as it will go, and still allow you to walk or run. Now, there will be people who are doing this race to compete, and there will be people who are doing this race to complete. So just make sure that you stay a little bit to the side. There will be people who want to come past you. You may be one of those people who's trying to run past. Whether you walk or whether you run, remember that your total time in a triathlon includes your transition. So you do want to move along up these ramps up to transition, preferably running. Okay, once your wetsuit is down to your waist, you're taking your caps and your goggles off, you're holding them in your hand. It's a long run to your bike. You have some time here, folks. While you're running up and enjoying the support of the crowd, you want to be thinking ahead to what you're going to do when you get to your bike spot. I can guarantee you that your highest heart rate for the entire race will be when you arrive at your bike. You've just run uphill, you've gone from horizontal to vertical, and you're running faster than you probably will during the race itself. So your heart rate will be high, your IQ will be low. Make sure you think through the order of operations for what you're going to do when you get to your bike. So you're visualizing putting your helmet on. You've got to have your helmet clicked before you touch your bike. Your wetsuit obviously has been stripped by this point. You're putting your socks and shoes on. You're putting your glasses on. That's really all you have to do in transition, people. You don't have to put on a ton of extra sunscreen. You don't have to eat. You don't have to do anything else. Just get on your bike, grab your bike, and start pushing it out of transition. Really encourage you to practice your transitions in advance. There is no greater part of triathlon for people's anxiety about wondering what happens in transition. You can allay these fears by just practicing them at home. Practice your T2 by going for a little run off your bike, and you can start that now. Practice your T1 by wearing your wetsuit in the pool, doing a hard 400, coming out, stripping in immediately on the deck, and then get back in and finish your workout. So there are ways to practice these in advance of race day, okay? Keep your transitions simple. You don't have to have a lot of extra stuff, and you don't have a lot of room for extra stuff in transition because the bikes are fairly well packed together. Okay, let's move on to the bike. So this is an overhead picture of the edge of transition, essentially. Okay, the bike racks are over here to the right of this photograph. It's fairly short from the end of transition to the mount line. You are not allowed to get on your bike before the mount line. Both your wheels have to be over the mount line before you can get on your bike. All right. The day before, when you put your bike into transition, make sure your bike is in the right gear. You don't want it super easy. You don't want it super hard. You want it somewhere in the middle. Transition line always feels a little bit crowded and hectic. You can help yourself in this situation and the athletes behind you if you pull to the side a little bit to get on your bike. Don't be that athlete that runs to the mount line, puts both their wheels in front of the mount line and stops dead, and then eats something, swings their leg over, takes their time, etc. Because there's athletes coming behind you. So try to be courteous and thoughtful of your position on the road. You want both hands on your handlebars, okay? There's no reason to eat in T1, and there's no reason to eat as you are exiting the transition area. About a mile down the road, you're going to be absolutely on a straight, flat road. That is the time that you want to take in the first nutrition on the bike. Now, the first half a mile or so of this is very straightforward. The pavement is good. You can get right into aero. It's easy. About a half mile in, there's this sort of ticky-tacky tour through the neighborhood. It's about a 5-block diversion, if you will, to get around a couple of traffic lights and to get to River Road. Now, you want to be a little bit careful in this section. Scrub your speed a little bit. It's very narrow. There will be cars parked. The pavement is terrible. There's a roundabout you have to navigate. You will lose nutrition and water bottles if you're coming through here too quickly. Plus, it's just dangerous. So scrub your speed a little bit going through this first part, and then you turn right onto River Road, and you can really start to build your power. You can start to eat for the first time. You can hydrate, etc. But just be patient until you get to through this first part. It's all done within a mile, and you're turned and onto the main part of the course. Okay, what else about this course? Here's an overall map. This map is obviously available on the Ironman website. It's a very straightforward course. It's out and back. There are aid stations every 15 miles. It rolls. Again, we talked about farmland. We talked about vineyards and strawberry fields and orchards. 1,100 feet of elevation, not a significant gain or loss of elevation. There are a couple of poppy hills in each direction. These are very short. They're a little bit steep. You're going to want to probably get out of the saddle, if only to give your back and hips a break, because the rest of this course is a great course to stay in aero. And Ironman does mark these particular hills as no passing zones in the direction that they are downhill, because they are reverse contoured, they are very narrow, it's a blind corner, and you descend through a railroad bridge. So those passing zones are marked here. They're obviously on the way out and the way back, because it's an out and back course. They are very well marked. You do not necessarily have to go and practice these parts of the course. They are very short sections. It's common sense, because as you're descending through this railroad bridge, you can't see what's around this corner. So even if there weren't volunteers there with flags and warnings and everything else, you would know that you would not want to go particularly fast through this section. So there are a couple of no passing zones. Please respect those for your safety and of the safety of athletes coming in the other direction. And also, as you are ascending those two hills on the way out, right about here and right here, and on the way back, it's an opportunity to get out of the saddle and give yourself a little bit of a break, particularly if you're in lower back. There's also on the back end of the course, after you make the turn and you are heading towards the back of the course, I would probably put it about 3/4 of the way out. There's a couple of sets of railroad tracks. And again, there will be volunteers there. One of them in particular is what I call the bottle sucking railroad tracks. You will see people have tried to take these railroad tracks too aggressively. The tracks themselves are totally safe. You're not going to get caught in the tracks, but there's a bit of a sort of a speed bump right before it. And if you go over this too fast, your bottles are going to go flying. You might even get a pinch flat. So just know that this is coming. Again, there will be volunteers there with flags telling people to slow down. Know that they exist. You don't want to stop and go back and get your water bottles. It's just unnecessary. So slow down a little bit so that you can take those railroad tracks safely. And then the last thing I would say is at the very end of this course, this little elevation right here demonstrates that as you are about to turn around, there's a little bit of a poppy hill right there. You are going around a cone. It's a narrow sort of rural road. You can easily make the U-turn. That's not the problem. The road surface there historically has not been that great. And at least in a couple of the 3 years that I've done this race, there tends to be a little bit of car congestion in there, and volunteers are trying very hard to manage both local residents who are trying to get through there as well as the bikes coming through. So just be really patient. If there are cars there, you're not going to lose a lot of time. Communicate with other riders, be safe, communicate with the motorists. We want to be welcome to Salem back year after year after year. So try to scrub any frustration you might feel if there are cars on the course right at that turnaround point, and just realize you're going to be through that section in a really short time. Last thing people often ask about is wind. Wind really isn't a factor on this course. I mean, 4 miles an hour, maybe on a bad day. It does pick up towards the very end of the afternoon, but all athletes will be well off the bike course before that becomes a factor at all. All right, what else about this course? Get aero, baby. This is a great course for a TT bike. You can stay in aero for the entire course, except for a couple of those really short hills that we talked about. As you think about your training over the next 5 months or so, and you do have a TT bike, make sure you're adjusting to that aero position starting now. You can do that on the trainer. You can do that when you start to get out on the road for if you live in a cold climate and you've been training inside. Set a reminder to yourself that you want to be eating at least 250 calories per hour. If you're a bigger person, maybe pushing 300, 350, and you want to be taking in at least a bottle an hour of water or electrolytes. We did an entire lecture on pacing and nutrition with Lance Watson, who's the head of Life Sport, a few months ago. We can easily get you that recording if you missed that. So we won't go into huge detail about nutrition here, but it's just a reminder that the more successful you are in taking in calories on the bike, the more successful your run will be. So set yourself a timer. I like to eat every 15 minutes, so I'm regularly spacing caloric intake and hydration over my ride. Practice eating and drinking while you're still in aero. You don't want to sit up every single time and make yourself a huge wind block. So practice grabbing your bottles, whether it's from behind your seat or on your down tube in your training over the next few months. You really want to make sure you're riding to your own power or heart rate expectations. You may have people coming by you. You may want to chase people down the road, but just know what you can ride and ride within your own abilities. This bike course is going to take you between 2.5 and 4 hours, depending on your level of experience and fitness. So pace yourself, in other words, according to your own expectations. It is a bike course that you can pedal the entire time, with the exception of descending through those very short descents through the bridge that I mentioned earlier. Consistent power on the pedals. The more consistently you are applying power to those pedals over the course of this bike segment, the better you will run off, because you will not be putting as much stress on your legs. So whether you're climbing or descending, consistent power application to those pedals. And you're going to want to maintain a comfortable cadence of between 80 and 90, which reflects your run cadence. We're trying to replicate your run cadence on the bike. Already mentioned this, as you're thinking about your training over the next few months, particularly as you get to within 8 to 10 weeks of the race itself, you're going to want to be doing lower tempo rides in the TT position outside, so you can really begin to learn how to handle terrain. The trainer is awesome, but you also really we race outside. So make sure you get some training in outside as well, and practice eating an aero. And if you've got a friend or a child and you want to practice grabbing bottles, because remember, at the aid stations are going to be handing out bottles of water, bottles of Mortal Hydration, which is the new sponsor, then you want to practice grabbing those bottles. You have to scrub your speed a lot more than you think you do. So particularly if you've got a child, they love practicing this with you. Have them go to the side of the road, hold up a bottle, and you can practice going by and grabbing bottles and discarding your old one. Okay, before we go on to T2, any questions about the bike course?
Juliet, I'll hop on and just reiterate one thing again that you just mentioned about the aid stations and the bike course, and that is if you are choosing to get aid at a bike aid station, pull off to the right and make eye contact with a volunteer and slow down. Slow down. This isn't the Tour de France. We're not just whipping through. Slow down. Get the bottle, stay to the right as you're doing your business, even pull off to the right side of the white line if you can. But just stay to the right. And conversely, if you're not going to get aid, stay to the left. Stay as close to the yellow line as you can. Slow down a little bit. Let the folks who are kind of wanting to find their way to the aid station to do so. Slow down even if you're not getting aid, but stay to the left so the folks that are going to get aid can do so safely on the right side there.
Hey, Joel,
Great,
one
thanks.
quick question. Can you talk a little bit about bike tech and if athletes have issues with their bike?
Yeah, absolutely.
Joel,
so we'll have.
Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
Go ahead, Julia.
No, after you. I was going to let you tackle this one.
So we will have a roving team of bike mechanics on the bike course, usually 3 to 5 bike mechanics. Some are going to be typically they're on either scooters, like a Vespa type scooter, or in a vehicle. But because of the nature of this bike course being an out and back course, so athletes, bikes going out, bikes coming back in, and a narrow course, the bike tech team as well as the SAG team have to kind of hop around on the side roads to get places. So it does make it a little bit trickier for our tech and our SAG teams to get to you, but we will have that neutral support out there. If you do need support, stop at an aid station is the best thing to do so they can communicate that you need help. Know how to do your basics if you can, your flat tires, your wrench, kind of things like that, to tighten a bolt here, tighten a bolt there. And then the last thing I'll mention about that is if you do need aid and you either talk to a race official or somebody and you say, hey, I need aid, stay where you are. Our tech team and our support team won't chase you. So if you say, hey, I need aid and I'm at Bike Aid Station 2, that's where we're going to plan to get you. Don't say, oh, well, maybe I'll ride ahead a little bit and they can try to find me up the way. No, if you need tech or support or whatever, stay wherever you are and then we'll find you where you're at. We're not going to chase you along the course.
There was a question about those no passing zones. Those no passing zones are no passing on the downhill only.
Juliet, did you want to add something about the tech stuff first?
No, I'll come back to that. Go ahead and answer the question about the passing zones.
Sure thing. So the passing zones, when you're going uphill under these kind of S curves underneath the train tracks, it's virtually impossible to be passing going uphill because it's quite steep. So you're going to be motoring if you're passing going uphill. Honestly, off the top of my head, I can't recall if we have a no pass on the uphill portion, but just don't plan on passing in general. It's really just the safest thing to do because it is narrow. So don't plan on passing either going up or downhill.
Yeah, on the downhill, it's really obvious, right? And on the uphill, again, you'd have to be a pretty strong rider to be passing people right there. I mean, use your common sense, people. If you were out there riding on the road and you came across this blind corner through a railroad bridge, which was really narrow, you would be thinking about the safest way to get through this bridge. So just use your common sense. If you're going to pass someone, you can just as easily pass them 100 meters later. So just wait, okay? What I was going to say about the aid stations on the bike is if you are, just to reiterate what Joel said, make eye contact with the volunteer. You can even say you, right? Obviously you don't want to take your hands off the handlebars to point to them, but you have to take your hands off the handlebars anyway to grab the bottle. And when we practice this with athletes every single year, 50% of them drop the water bottle the first time they do it because they just don't realize how much they have to slow down. Now, knowing that, if you are not planning to take water and you are planning to stay to the left, there are going to be water bottles all over the ground. And there are volunteers darting in and out to grab those water bottles so they don't create obstacles. But just know that there is stuff on the ground going through these bike aid stations because people have not been able to do the water bottle grab successfully. So keep your head on a swivel when you go through these water stations. There's one actually on the bike that is right after a descending 90-degree turn, beautiful sweeping turn, and then the aid station's right there. So people are going to be scrubbing their speed as they come around that corner. And so again, just keep your head up. You want to be safe. You don't want to create a problem for anybody else. Okay, T2. So here we are. We're off the bike. It's a short run from the dismount line. You have to get off your bike before the dismount line, not on the other side of the dismount line. Okay, so you cannot let your front wheel come across that dismount line. So make sure you're off in plenty of time before it. Don't be intentional. Do be intentional. Don't rush. You're running a very short distance from the dismount line to your bike. T2 is easy. All right. You don't have to deal with the wetsuit and all of the things. It's 1, 2, 3. Shoes, belt, cap. All right. Your bike shoes have come off. Maybe you've left them on the bike. You're putting on your running shoes. You're grabbing your race belt. And if you run with a baseball cap, you're putting your cap on your head. Very, very easy. Now, depending on your nutrition plan, you might have a gel or a goo of some kind in your shoe that you might grab and kind of sip on the way out of transition, knowing that the first aid station is just a mile down the road and you can chase that with water. And as you come out of transition, think about bringing your cadence up a little bit. Your legs might feel a little bit dead from biking for 2.5 to 4 hours. Understandable. Hopefully you've practiced this brick run a few times, but the best way to kind of get your legs going is to intentionally bring your cadence up as you come out of T2. Now, having said that, what I always think about is, avoid irrational exuberance in the first mile, because often we come off the bike and we've got so much adrenaline. We're finally in the run. Here we are. We're in the third leg. This is awesome. And you run way faster than you're supposed to in the first mile, and even in the second mile, and then in the third mile, and then you're starting to slow down and you're at the 6th mile and the 9th mile. And all of a sudden your pace is way off where you started. So have a little bit of a pace ceiling for yourself in the first half of this race, and try to be honest about not going faster than that pace for the first half of the race. And if you get to the halfway point and you're feeling great, your nutrition's on tap, go ahead and try to negative split the race. That's fine, but just avoid that irrational exuberance a little bit in the first mile. Okay, the run, as we've mentioned, one of the most popular runs, I think, in 70.3s in North America. Absolutely beautiful. You're coming out of transition, top right of your screen. You're going across that beautiful bridge that you've seen some photos of. I like to think of this as a figure 8 on a popsicle stick, this being the popsicle stick right here as you run out and back. You're doing this almost figure 8 twice, okay? So it's mostly flat. It's mostly shaded. There are a few parts that are exposed, particularly on this part of the course right here. It begins to feel a little bit warm right here. In the back end of the park, in this area, sometimes GPS isn't entirely accurate. So if you look at your watch and you're really driven by pace and you're thinking, gosh, this seems really odd, don't let it rattle you. Sometimes in the back end of the park, the GPS is off a little bit. Ironman, as always, will have mile markers, so you'll know exactly where you are on the course at all times. The reason that this is such a terrific spectator race is your friends and family can drive down River Road. This is the bike course, and drive into Minto Brown Island Park and park right here, or along the access road right here. And so if they're planted right here, they can see you 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So it's a great place for them to go stand on the run. There's also an aid station right here. There's also a children's playground right here if there's younger spectators. So this is a great place for people to bring a deck chair, bring a cooler, just hang out here for the duration of your run, because they'll see you. You'll get to see them. They'll get to see you 4 times. It can get hot towards the sort of beginning of the afternoon, end of the afternoon. So if you are someone who is thinking about doing this race in kind of the 5.5 to 8.5 or 6 to 8.5 hour time frame, you really want to think about pre-cooling. Once your body temperature goes up, it's very, very difficult to bring it down again. Remember, at every aid station, Ironman always does it the same way. You've got water, in this case, Mortal Hydration, gels, Mortal Hydration, water at every aid station. That's how Ironman lines people up. So at the first volunteer, slow to a walk, 2 glasses of water, 2 cups of water, 1 in your mouth, 1 on your head. Jog to the last volunteer, 2 glasses of water, 1 in your mouth, 1 on your head. Every aid station to pre-cool yourself if the temperatures look like they're creeping towards the high 70s, low 80s. Your kit will be wet. You want that. It's a good thing. So make sure you pre-cool. There's that epic bridge at the very beginning going out, and at the very end, starting from about here on the popsicle stick, you will be able to see the bridge. You will be able to hear the finish area. It's very exciting. If your friends and family are in the finish area, and they should be able to get from here to there. Well, parking might be a bit difficult, but maybe after the third time they see you, they can double back, get to the finish area. They'll be able to see you come across the bridge. You'll be able to hear them cheering. It's a wonderful finish. You come around the corner, the red carpet's right there, and it's a terrific run. It's flat and fast. There's a couple of very, very short hills, but they don't even deserve to be called hills. They may feel like a hill at mile 9 or mile 10, but there are really no hills to speak of. It's pretty darn flat. On course, there's aid stations every mile. Remember that this year, particularly once we get to the spring, the hydration sponsor for Ironman has changed. It's no longer Gatorade, so it's water, Mortal Hydration, cola, Morton gels, fig bars, chips, pretzels, bananas, oranges. Remember that Morton gels come in 2 varieties. One is uncaffeinated and one is caffeinated. So just know which one you're taking. I had an athlete do his first 70.3 a couple of years ago. He took all the caffeinated gels for the entire race, and he was sick as a dog. He just wasn't as used to having that much caffeine going through his system over the course of that 5 hours. So make sure you know what you're getting, but they will be on course. But at Mortal Hydration, you can find it on the feed. It's a fairly new product. It is an electrolyte, not a carb drink. So make sure you understand what you're getting if in races past you have depended on Gatorade. Just educate yourself on that. Visualize yourself coming down the red carpet. It's a terrific finish. Lots of people will be there. It's right next to the race food. It's right next to where they hold awards. It's a great place for hanging out after the race. Lots of grass to sit on, etc. Congratulations. Again, I will be at the run figure 8 and in the finish area. We have 30 life sport athletes who will be competing in this race, plus all of our Oregon friends. So give me a high five as you go by me in the middle of the figure 8 on the course. I'll also be there to answer questions after the race. If you see me, please make sure you say hi. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll take a bunch of questions now, any other questions, but just so you know how to reach out to me and to Life Sport, make sure you're in touch. I'm on Instagram. My email is right there. The free coaching call is in the chat. I'm also running a race preview clinic on June 29th in Salem. It's open to everybody. The information is on the Life Sport Coaching website. So if you'd like to take a peek at the course, we'll be doing some course preview. We'll be doing a little workouts in each section. We'll be talking about pacing and nutrition, transition, etc. So please join me on June 29th if you can. So that's all I've got. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There's Joel. Any other questions from the participants? Thanks for coming, everybody.
Juliet, before we dive into the questions that Jeff was about to bring up, I'll just kind of piggyback off of a couple of things you mentioned about the run course. And I did post this. I did answer a question in the chat, the Q&A section just a second ago, but I'll share it out loud here as well. If you do want to have your spectators come watch you at Minto Brown Island Park, know that River Road that you would have to drive to get from downtown Salem out to the run course is part of the bike course. So especially early on in the run time frame of the day, there's going to be bikes on that. And while that road is open to vehicular traffic, we kind of discourage folks from doing that just because it would make such a mess for the cyclists and all that to get out there. A little bit later on in the day, as the bikes are done going out, it'll be much easier to get out there. So just keep that in mind, especially if your athlete is going to be earlier in the run portion. Don't expect to be able to see them put their run shoes on, hop in the car and fly out to the park and watch, because that just isn't practical. And then also on the other side of that, unfortunately, due to our permit requirement or regulations, I should say, that big bridge that's over this shoulder in my screen here, the Taco Bridge, as we affectionately call it, unfortunately, that is closed to spectators during the run. So they cannot walk across that to get out to the run course either. So the short of it is there's really not a good, quick, easy way to get out to the run course to watch your person, but you can do it. Just take some planning and patience.
Right. So, what I would do is have the conversation with your athlete, and I would plan to get out to the run course early. right? Before
Yep.
before the bulk of the age group cyclists start coming through, take a picnic. If you've got kids, there's a playground right there. Maybe even there's plenty of places to walk in, to go for a hike in that park, a run of your own before your athlete comes through. So
Totally.
get out there early. What I do is I actually just leave one bike in T2. I have another bike in my car. I run to my car. I get on my bike. I bike out to Minto Park on the road so that I can intercept athletes out there. So so yeah, do plan ahead on that, because you don't want to create extra traffic snarls on the bike course.
So the only other question, I had answered it incorrectly based on seeing pictures of people who participated. Joel corrected it, but just for everybody else, what is the running surface?
It was in the past, I think in year 1, maybe in year 2, it was a mix of surfaces, but as of the last at least 2 years, it is 100% asphalt. There are a few boardwalk bridges you go over. So they're kind of, a bridge that's made of wood. But other than that, it is all asphalt. No gravel, hard packed dirt, or anything like that.
Wear your fast shoes, people.
And like Juliet said, it's flat, it's shady, and it's beautiful.
One quick question for our tri-clubs that will be attending, as this is a very popular tri-club race. Will the tri-club location for tent setup be the same place as it was in the past?
Yep, that's the plan for Tri-Club Village. Should be the same as it was the last 2 or 3 years, which will be at what would be the south end of transition, kind of just north of the finish line area there. So if you were part of the Tri-Club scene before, the plan is to have that in the same spot again this year.
Okay, and we'll post that up as well on the race website.
Okay,
go ahead.
And this is a qualifier for both 2025 70.3 Worlds as well as 2024 for women Ironman Worlds in France. So keep that in mind as well. It's one of those special races where you can actually qualify for 2 world championships in one race. You can take both slots. So something to think about if you are racing it to race. All right. Well, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Joel, for joining me. It was absolutely great to do this with you. Thank you very much. And thank you to Joel number 2, as well as my colleague, Jeff Sankoff, who helped answer questions in the back. You know how to reach us. Really excited to see you down there. Jeff is also going to be racing it for the first time this year. So we'll have a couple of expert coaches on hand at the race day itself. Joel's always available as well. Really appreciate everybody coming out and hope everybody has a really great race day. Thanks so much, everybody.
A few quick reminders.
Before I let Joel Feinberg close things out, I'll just say thank you to Juliet for working with us and providing this awesome webinar for our athletes. We're stoked to have this partnership with you. And I'm excited to see all of you in Salem. It's like Juliet said multiple times, it's a fantastic beginner-friendly race. It's become a fan favorite. It sells out just about every year now. So good luck and thanks for joining us. And we hope to see you in Salem. I'll turn it over to Joel to take us out.
All right. And I too want to thank both of you. I know both of you are really busy in taking your time to be part of these webinars and educate our athletes. A couple quick announcements and just kind of piggyback off what was said earlier. 2 things. One, we have this really cool tracker app, the Ironman tracker app, where you can download that off of Google and the Apple Store and get it on your phone. That will have all your information to track your local athletes. That will also have the athlete guide. It will have the time schedule and everything that you need to kind of roll through race weekend and race week. And that brings me to also what we talked about earlier with the athlete guide. The athlete guide can really answer a lot of questions. It will have our course maps. It will have all updated information, including nutrition information, aid station information, all the good stuff. So the tracker app is really the thing to go. Please do download that as soon as possible to get yourself used to it. It has all of our races in there. So, all right, with that being said, I want to thank everybody for being part of this.
Hold on, Joel. I got one more thing, Joel, and that is that we are doing a Conquer the Course 70.3 webinar for Santa Cruz in a couple of weeks. Jeff will be leading that. And we are brand new race in the Pacific Northwest, which is in Eastern Washington, which is called 70.3 Tri-Cities. We will be doing a webinar for that one. I will be leading that one. I'm going to go out and recce the course in June. I will be bringing all the information about that course, and the race director will be here with me as well. So if you're a regional athlete and you're thinking about doing both Oregon and 70.3 Tri-Cities, keep an eye on your email, because we'll be talking about that in a couple of months. Okay, now I'm done. Thanks, Joel.
Great. No problem. And if you're not tired of myself and Joel Gaff, the RD, you can find us doing a Q&A session for Ironman 70.3 Michigan in the fall, for those of you needing a great fall race up there in northern Michigan near Traverse City and Frankfurt. So, all right. I want to thank everybody for being part of this. Once again, the recording will be posted here shortly if you want to review it or send it over to other people. Thanks everyone for being part of it, and you have a great weekend, and good luck racing Ironman 70.3 Oregon.
Thanks, everybody. So you have to end the call. There we go.